Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm David.
And this is the Practical Guitarist Podcast.
The podcast for people who eat, sleep, and breathe guitar. The Practical Guitarist Podcast is brought to you by Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Great Lakes Guitar Pickups provides fantasy tones at prices a practical guitarist will love. Featuring top-notch construction, attention to detail, and a fully custom product, if you can dream it, Great Lakes Guitar Pickups can probably build it. Follow them on Facebook at facebook.com/Great Lakes Guitar Pickups. Are you a regular listener? Why not? David here reminding you of all the ways you can participate in the Practical Guitarist Podcast. Subscribe using your chosen podcast app. Review us on iTunes, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, or Google Play. Find our Facebook group at facebook.com/groups/practicalguitarist or on Twitter as @practguitarist. Support the show. Merchandise is available in our Threadless store at practicalguitaristpodcast.threadless.com. And donate to us via Patreon, available at patreon.com/practicalguitarist. Reach out to us directly via email at questions@practicalguitarist.com. Lift off. Hi, Jim.
Hi, David. I know you've been wanting to do that to me all day.
Oh, yeah. No, shit. I used the F word against you this morning, so that's fine enough. In a public forum, no less.
In a public forum.
So here we are. Cool. Another episode. Yep. I'm still here. Jim's still here. All is good in the world.
Somehow we had our first lover spat.
Oh, no. We've had a couple, but you just didn't know it yet.
Yeah.
So we got some cool stuff coming up, man. Later in the week, instead of a Wednesday episode, what we're going to do is we're going to do a Wednesday live broadcast where you can participate.
That's right.
I have not picked the service we're going to use to do this yet. I'm looking at Zoom. I may buy us a Zoom license because I think we can have 100 people in the room if I do that. Or we're going to use Google Hangouts. So I don't know which. I think Zoom would probably be better because we're going to get a lot more people able to join, and I think the connection will be a little bit more solid. So I've got to determine that. I'll have that up by tomorrow night in the group. If you're not a member of our Facebook group, please join. You'll see the details up tomorrow evening, probably right around show launch. And we'll be ready for, whoever wants to show up and harass us or be nice. So you can do either one, or you can just show up and listen if you want. We don't care.
Rather you just harassed us.
Yeah, we're fine with harassment. Jim and I are.
We're good at harassing each other. Take my word for it.
Oh yeah.
So you guys harassing us would be fine.
So
how do you spell that? HARRYASS?
Yeah, there's definitely an ASS in there. Let me tell you. You don't have a hair on your ass if you don't harass.
So
I'll stop the dad jokes now.
Oh my God. So yeah, they were terrible. There's been some behind the scenes stuff. So I've been kind of waffling on that Stratocaster, and I'm going to get it.
Oh, I got something to announce tonight too.
I wasn't going to get it, so I didn't wind up picking it up, and then go ahead.
So I found the pickup mule. You know this.
Oh yes.
So I gotta give the whole story. So I went to Good Time Music. I made an appointment. Went in, talked to Pat. I didn't make an appointment. He invited me to come in, and I came in. I sat down with Pat, and Pat basically we went through a couple of different styles of guitars. We talked about the Gem Junior because I played one. I really liked it. We talked about RGs. There for various reasons. We figured the best thing to do was to find something that was swimming pool routed and with a pick guard instead of trying to use adapter rings, which I kind of agree with. And we need to find something that we can get pretty cheap pick guards available. And so he pointed out that, I already like G&L and that they have a plethora of of appropriately routed guitars for my needs. And initially, I was going to get this Fullerton Red Legacy, which it just stock new price $500. It's a little bit more expensive than the trash heap I had purchased, and I'm still awaiting my refund on, no less. But I've been told by eBay, I had a call with them. They say my money's coming, and that I will be able to ship tomorrow because they're going to issue me the label I need to go drop it off at the USPS. So that being said, I'm going to get that all taken care of. That money is going to go towards this new guitar. I started looking at the Fullerton red one, and then he points out on the wall. He says, hey, I can give you a deal on this green one over here. And I look at it's an American, and I was like, I saw stars, and I was like, deal? What kind of deal can you give me? And then he told me, which I will not disclose here, confidentiality. Pat takes care of people that shop there. And basically the deal with the guitar is it's been there for a little bit, and he wants to move it. And I went home and I showed it to my wife, and I said, I think this is the one. And then she said, you're an idiot, and you're going to break Year of No Gear if you do that. And as she is the referee, we had a conversation. It resulted in a longer conversation and several other conversations afterwards about the guitar. The next day, I was going back and forth with her, trying to determine what I was going to do. And ultimately, I decided that I should err on the side of caution and get the $500 guitar. For a couple of reasons. Number one, I don't need any more G&Ls. Another USA, kind of Strat style guitar. I don't need it. That's what they are. They're Strat style. The Legacy is a dyed in the wool Strat style guitar. It's got Alnico 5 pickups and all that good stuff. So it was funny because I ended up turning it down, and I bought the Fullerton Standard. So I put down $100. I'll go pick it up later this week when it's all done for pickup and everything. But yeah. So Jim is sneezing. He's got the silent button going. It's really fun.
Yeah, thank goodness. You guys would have been jumping out of your chairs if you'd heard that one.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, all right, I'm going to say this. I know that the other one would have been Year of No Gear, and that guitar. And no, I'm not going to share the pricing.
The green sparkle with the cream pick guard.
Yeah, I definitely would have got that.
It's a beautiful guitar, and it plays better than the Fullerton. Like, you haven't seen the Fullerton red color in person. It is a very special looking red. It's borderline. It's like a weird. Like, you get close to it, it's kind of gets a lot of orange to it, and it's got a lot of pink to it actually. And so it has this like weird, almost washed out appearance to it. It is a very unique color. I've never seen anything like it. And then of course that matched with the vintage tint maple neck is, it's pretty good looking. The pictures on their website just don't do it justice. So,
incredible.
Even when I went back and told Pat laughed at me, and he was like, oh, so your wife decided you couldn't get that one, huh? And I kind of teased him. I said, my wife had nothing to do with it. I said, I decided not to. And then he leans over the counter and he goes, that Fullerton red one is unbelievable. He's like, is it unbelievably good looking, isn't it? And I said, yeah. And then he goes, I really like that guitar. He's like, I don't think you're making a bad decision, And I'm like, all right, well, if he says so. The nice thing, if I'd have gotten the green sparkle, is I probably would have. I think that came with a hard case. I've got no case with the tribute, but it's a tribute, So I do need to get a new gig bag. It's on my list of things to do. I just haven't done it yet. So I've got a cheapy Fender. I like their $30 gig bag that they put out. Their $30 deluxe gig bag they put out a few years ago, and it's not deluxe at all. So I need to get something better. Something with some actual padding, frankly.
Wow. As you know, I decided to go ahead and get the Strat, so I'm going to pick that up this week. And in other news, so I was looking at as you know, somebody turned me on to take a second look at the John Mayer Silver Sky.
I don't know who would have done such a thing.
Yeah, and so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to sell one of my guitars and then put some more money in and get a Silver Sky. So the downside is
finding one.
Well, no, I mean I can wait because I got to sell mine.
True.
So it's not a big deal. No, it's not really finding one that's so much as I'm going to.
I know of one.
Those of you, that might be the one that I go after because at least he's got a hard case for it. That's what I was getting to next.
I think he does. I'm not sure. I'd have to ask. I think that's an HSC one.
Yeah. So I guess the originals came with the hard shell case. Now they ship with
the gig bag.
Gig bag. So if those of you are looking at them online and you go, oh, look at that, it's got a gig bag with it. It does come with a gig bag now.
Yeah, Jim and I discovered that the other night because we were looking at one and we're like, why the hell is he giving a gig bag with this?
Yeah, what do you do? Sell the case separately? But that's unfortunately.
Well, apparently there's some people with the cases too. Some of them were black and I guess some of them were white.
Yes, they were different colors.
So I think it was a limited
edition run of the first 50 cases or something.
Yeah. So I know that there's like a lot of turmoil over who got a case with theirs and who's selling their cases online and this whole thing. Yep. I heard that actually the Sam Ash store guy was asking like, does yours have a case? You know, it's like, is it really that big a deal? I mean, if you're going to play it, so I get it. I mean, collector's guitar, right? First 100 or whatever are collector's instruments. But at the same time, I kind of don't get it because I'm like, in this day and age, almost everything's going to be a player's guitar. I mean, you're not going to be able
to. For me.
Well, I'm just saying, like, you're not going to be able to determine what a collector's guitar is. Collectability is determined by rarity, not by, the manufacturer making a limited run. Okay, a lot of cases, and this has been the case with a lot of collectible markets, and I think it's happened in guitar occasionally too, where company says limited edition, limited run. We're only going to make this for 1 year, and then they make 20,000 of them. And it's like, how is this rare? You know?
Yeah. Well, okay. So the fact is that the first 50. Now, of course, it depends on whether you care that it's the first 50. It's got a case, and it's this case. Are numbered. So the first 50 are numbered. They've got a numbered matching case or some shit like that, so that you know that case when it came with the guitar. That's why I said if you buy the case secondary and you get the guitar, they're not going to be numbered the same. So there is going to be it's not the right one. Now, of course, there's going to be people just like anything else who fall for I've got a case for it, so it must have been one of the first ones. So
I mean, as far as the Silver Sky pricing goes, I mean, it's $2,200 or something, right?
$22.99.
Yeah, it's $22.99. I mean, if you compare to what else is out there, I mean, you could get a Nash for that. You could get
Sure.
No, I think Sir, you're gonna have to pay an extra $200 for Sir. So I believe their Strat style is $2,500.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I think so.
Go ahead.
So I mentioned this to the group, and this kind of ignited a little bit of a war. But I mentioned there are better values out there. But I was thinking about it later this afternoon. I'm like, really there aren't many other Strat style guitars that are that desirable and have that feature set for that amount of money. And by feature set, I mean I would consider the feature set on this. Of course, you get locking tuners, you get a 7 1/4-inch radius, which you're not going to find that unless you go custom shop. Really, I mean Fender does make a couple of models, I believe, is 7.25 inch. Is it 7.25 or 7.5? I'll just say 7 inch. You guys know what I mean, like the vintage
7 1/4-inch radius.
Yeah, vintage Fender radius. So Fender makes a couple of guitars, I think, still in their production line that have this. They're few and far between. Custom shops are often this. Most modern players have kind of gravitated more towards the 9.5-inch radius because it allows for easier bending. You don't fret notes out. You don't have to worry about, having perfect action in order to play the guitar properly, which 7 1/4 tends to be a little bit higher maintenance. And it's probably partially because Fender doesn't want to have to worry about, setups in shops. There's not a whole lot of difference between 7 1/4 and 9.5. Although my gut impression of 9.5 versus 7 1/4, 7 1/4, it seems like your D and your G string are a lot closer to the fretboard, just in the way that they're set, and that may be the way that they're cutting the nuts on that particular guitar. I've made comments about the radius not feeling right to me. And I wonder if it's just because the nuts are being cut differently than other guitars typically ship with, and that could be a big component of that. I mean, it could be anything. Again, so this guitar is so kind of like a custom like animal of its own in a way that, you know, when you most people don't think about this. When you design a guitar and you put a bridge in, take your Floyd Rose for example, because it's a perfect example. How many Floyded guitars have a 15, 17, 18, 20 inch, 22? I think I've seen a guitar with a 22 inch radius. And that's basically flat, right? And
that's almost concave.
And you get them going down. You get them going down all the way to 12 inch, 9.5 inch, and I've seen Floyd's on 7.25 inch guitars before. Now here's where I'm gonna point something out that people don't think about. So if you have a 7.25 radius and you're putting a bridge on a guitar, the string spacing for that bridge is going to have a profound effect on the playability of that guitar because of the geometry. Now, your typical Floyd, I believe, is set up for a 12 inch radius. So when you go to somebody like Ibanez, and they have a 15 inch or 15.5 inch radius on most of their guitars, depending on what year and all that, their bridges are set up to accommodate that. And so they've been designed with that geometry in mind. But other companies, like their licensed Floyds, aren't necessarily built to match the radius. And I've never looked at actually buying a Floyd Rose, and I kind of did the other day. And I noticed that they don't make different radius models. So, I mean, I imagine it's the same way for Strat style guitars and saddles and all of that. They all have to be the right spacing and the right trajectory, which is your scale length to the nut. And so therefore it's going to affect the playability. So a 7.25 inch radius is going to affect your playability to an extent. You can obviously get around some of that with adjusting your saddles up and down. And because those are vintage saddles, you can actually tilt the saddle one way or the other and the string will slide along, and you can actually use that as a kind of a makeshift adjustment for the angle. So I imagine the guitar could probably be set up to my liking, but it's, you know, out of the box, the one I played, I was not a huge fan of it. I think Pat's trying to get me to buy it anyway, because he keeps telling me, like, you need to play that again. Like, you need to try that thing again. You know, he's like, I can't believe you didn't like that thing. I actually really like all the appointments on the guitar. I love the jack plate.
Yep. I
think it's the coolest thing in the world to having that ridge there. And I like the knobs. The knobs do not feel cheap. Like your typical Strat knobs feel cheap to me. They don't have any weight to them, and they're plastic. And then over time, the numbers wear off and all that. So it's like, why bother to put them on there anyway? The switch tip was cool. I did not play it with the trem. I imagine that's like any other PRS push-in trem. But so for me, the features on this guitar are really the fact that, you know, you get that vintage Fender radius neck. So to go out and find a competitor product, you're few and far between. If you want to open it up and you want to say, okay, I want something with a 9.5 inch radius or something like that, then there are probably better values available. I suppose you could probably find a used custom shop for $1,700 or something, but then you're going used, and that's not really comparing apples to apples. So, although we could say, you know, what do they go for used now? The Silver Skies more than new, right?
Well, if you get the one with the hard case, more than new. But I've seen them for about $2,000.
Yeah. Okay.
So on Reverb,
they're still in high demand. Give it a couple years, and they'll be cheaper than, and people will be giving them away, because that's. I have a feeling what's happened is since the demand on these things was through the roof, Paul Reed Smith, you know, sold out their inventory. They probably made a few more. They sold those out. And now what's going to happen is they're going to keep flooding the market. And eventually people who bought these as an opportunity to sell up are probably going to be sitting on them. And then they're going to want to unload them and get their money out. And when that happens, that's when you'll get the deals. I bet these guitars go for $1,500 or less when that starts happening. So
yeah.
Might be a
and
year or
that's
two.
what I'm thinking.
Might be a year or two.
Yep.
There'll be when John Mayer goes back to Fender.
Yeah, or Gibson pays him enough to come over there.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised
And then
because he's got a bunch of 335s and old Gibson jazz boxes, so that wouldn't shock me if someday he goes to Gibson.
Yeah, it's just So I'm looking at the tungsten one. I played it a couple times. I like it. So
not everybody has to like the guitar you buy, and I think that's I think with the Silver Sky, it's just a very polarizing piece.
I think it is.
And
I think because it's obvious that the body shape says this is a Fender-esque guitar. So
I think honestly I think the body shape says PR. I know. I think the body shape says PRS. I think the features say Fender. I think it's the exact opposite. I think the body shape, the 3x3 headstock, the PRS style locking tuners.
Yeah, the neck does not say. I mean, if you took that neck off, you could not find a Fender you're going to be able to put it on. You don't have the body. I guess you're right. The body itself, the cutaway, the way that is not Fender. It's like you said, the features, the 3 knobs, the 3 single cut or 3 single coils in the positions they are, and so on and so forth. Those say Fender. So and the look, not the feel of it, but the look of the bridge says Fender.
So before the show, Jim and I had this discussion. I think it was part of that conversation about valued guitars, like better values or whatever. And of course, Jim says, you're just trying to make people, buy more G&L so the price goes up. And of course you're joking. But
you don't care if
I don't care if you're joking. I didn't care if you were joking. It didn't matter. No. So, and I had a witty quip about that. I was like, hell no, I don't want him to go up in price. I want to be able to get him cheap.
Exactly.
So the funny thing is that I took this comment and I said, all right, I'm going to actually go look at the prices of these things and compare.
Yeah.
And so what I found was, first off, finding G&L models from like Guitar Center is a pain in the ass because G&L sells custom. So G&L is trying to fix that problem right now. They came out with a new line this year called Fullerton Standard, right? And so what the Fullerton Standard is a basic feature set that you could usually get on a custom guitar that they've done. They do 3 stock models that are pre-configured that they can sell to stores for an inexpensive price. Now, when I talk about inexpensive price, I'm talking $999, folks. Right. Or, a made in USA guitar with all the American stuff. And if you ever get a chance to watch some of the YouTube videos in their factory, you'll be impressed. They're still making a lot of the guitar by hand, the same way that they used to make them years ago, the Fenders. And they do use a Plek machine. There is some CNC routing and stuff going on, but for the most part, it's a lot less automated than you would believe. A lot of hand shaping going on, especially in their USA line. But what's funny? They've been doing a lot of publicity about that lately. I saw Andertons do a video on that, and I saw they lost their British distributor. They lost their British distributor. It was really ugly, and so the whole Andertons thing is because of that. And there's some other stuff that's going on in like the European market that you can see videos and stuff now that are coming out because they're very excited to actually get some G&Ls in Europe because that was a big problem for a long time. So what's interesting, so $999 is a G&L Fullerton Standard Legacy electric guitar. The closest thing in price from Fender is the American Special Strat, which is another US made Fender, right? It's $1,000. It's $1,050, right? So you might be able to get a deal on one, and get one for $1,000. That's the comparison. So the Special Series is supposed to be a little bit more contemporary, but it's also a little bit lower on feature set to an American Standard. It's got a 6-screw bridge and all that stuff. Your typical Strat appointments. I don't think it features a rosewood neck, but it might be rosewood. No, it is. It is rosewood. So I have an image of the listing over here. So that would be what you would compare it to. Now, the funny thing is, remember I mentioned finding listings for them is kind of difficult. So if you were to compare a custom shop model, which the only one they have listed is a G&L Legacy electric guitar Shoreline Gold on Guitar Center. Now, I'll tell you, they make pretty much every color into the rainbow, but they are literally on price with the American Professional Stratocaster. Rosewood again, same deal. Alnico pickups, the whole thing. 2-point bridge. I will say, because I looked at an American Professional the last time I was in Guitar Center. They still don't use a big bridge block. It's not made out of stainless steel or anything. The G&L Legacy Tremolo is definitely better quality than what you're going to get on the USA. But again, same thing. If you're worried about resale, buy the Fender. That's if you're not planning on keeping the guitar forever, you want to buy the Fender. Now, here's where your saving comes in from G&L though. So we covered the 2 high-end guitars. That and the fact that you can get basically what amounts to a custom shop guitar for them for under $1,800 is pretty impressive. I'm looking for the other image while I'm digging around on my screen here. Oh, here it is. It's on the other screen. So this is, again, kind of the same deal, same features, same feature set. There are fewer colors available from G&L, but if you want a G&L Tribute Legacy, which is equivalent to a Fender Player Stratocaster, now granted, Fender Player can be China, Mexico, whatever foreign country they're having these built in. The Tribute is made in Indonesia by Court, is only $500. The Fender Player is $650. And I don't think either of these come, well, yeah, I don't think either of these come with a bag. If they do, it would be the Fender that comes with the bag. That's a pretty expensive bag, $150 bag. So I don't know. I don't know, guys. I mean, at least at the low end, it looks like their G&L comes out actually quite a bit more competitive. But they both have cool colors right now. So if you're looking for a Strat style guitar and don't want to spend a lot of money, I mean, you can't beat either of these, really. I think that the G&L would be a better value for my taste, but if you're a traditionalist, you'd probably look at the Player Stratocaster.
All right, so let me ask you this, because you mentioned this before, so I'm gonna ask you this question because you're a G&L guy, and you have them and you know them.
Yeah, I have them.
So let's say you're a Strat guy, you want to get a G&L, and you go, should I or shouldn't I? What about replacement parts?
That's the big problem with G&L. So a lot of the replacement parts have to come direct from G&L. And by replacement parts, I mean pick guards. Yeah, that's right. The American Strat pick guard, the typical Fender Stratocaster style pick guard will not fit on a G&L. And it's partially due to the bridge, because the bridge it's cut out to fit the bridge, but there are other things that are actually different about the pick guards as well. That's really the only big replacement part that you couldn't, it's like tuning keys. You can buy same tuning keys that you can put on a Fender. You can get for your G&L, no big deal. Pickups are the same size in most cases, unless they're like the super big MFD, like soap bar looking things, or P90s, that kind of thing. And your bridge has to come from G&L. Now their bridge is pretty pricey. You can buy their bridge by itself. I think it's like $150. But what I will say is that bridge is on par with like the best stuff you're going to get out of Shaler, the best stuff you're going to get out of Shaler makes Floyd Roses, so they own Floyd Rose now. So, but that's my point, is that they have that level of machine quality. And they're not made out of pot metal or anything like that. I mean, you can see when you look at the block, it's steel and it's not zinc. There's no zinc in it whatsoever. It's actually polished too, which just a little, added touch. But, so I mean, yeah, the replacement parts are more, but I mean, even at this amount, you could buy another bridge for the price difference between that and the Fender Player Stratocaster. I mean, and to be perfectly honest, I have a Jimmy Vaughn Strat, which was supposed to be like, when I bought it, was like the top end of the Fender Mexico line. And my G&Ls are better than it by a long shot. I mean, my Tribute and the one I'm getting are both better than it, in my opinion. So I don't know. It really comes down to what flavor you want, because yes, the Legacy is very much a Stratocaster, but it is not exactly like what every Strat on the market's like either.
Right.
So you have to play it, because that's the other thing you got to remember is the Tribute Legacy is a 12-inch radius, whereas the Fender Player Strat's a 9.5. Now that's Gibson versus Fender basically. And that came, all the features and changes that happened in the G&L line over the years and the standard things that happened because of player feedback, number one. And number two was adapting and changing music style. Even through, Leo's years of working as CLF, doing Music Man, he was already starting to implement those things because he realized that, a 7.25-inch radius was going to cause you to fret out if you bent too high.
Right.
And that cuts you out, pretty much all the blues players. Like if you look at how many people that alienates in the market, yeah, you definitely want to do away with that. So people may love it today. I think the reason why people like 7.25-inch radius guitars today is because most of them have been refretted, or if they have the original frets, they have been worn down to have more of a compound radius. And so it's a little bit more palatable on a vintage guitar. I think on newer guitars with a 7.25, it's a little bit different. Now I'll stop talking about Strats. I really want to.
So let's talk about the other thing. So switching topics, you were talking about pedals and pricing earlier.
Oh, well, yeah. So this plays into this too. So everybody adjusts their prices, right? And that's not just pedals; that's like the whole industry. And we've obviously we have inflation, and we talked last week about Gibson and Fender and that whole thing that went down in 60 Cycle Hub's video about it. This week, so there's a podcast. I'm Chasing Tone, Wampler's podcast. Is Chasing Tone his, or is that Blake Weiland's?
Yeah, Chasing Tone is.
Oh, that's right, right. He's got Tone Mob.
Tone Mob.
Oh, yeah, right. So Chasing Tone is Brian Wampler's podcast, and there was an episode a while back. Maybe it was when he did his interview on Amps and Axes. But anyway, they were talking about pricing, and he was talking about how hard it is to get a price increase through for his stuff, and that they went 7 or 8 years without a price increase. Because every time they tried to do it, people would just throw a fit and be like, what do you mean this is going to be $10 more? And it's really funny because we see it, right? We see it in these groups. I see it on the gear page all the time where people are like, oh, here we go. Now they're just going to raise prices and make it cheaper. And to an extent, yes, companies do that. But that's their bottom line, right? So if you're Fender, what is your goal? What is your goal as Fender? It is to put as many guitars into shops, not people's hands, into shops as possible. And so when you have to do a price increase, you're going to have to explain to the shop, the retailer, why you have to raise prices. So obviously that the fastest way and the easiest way to do that is to tell them, well, it's a cost of living increase, or it's this is a material increase, meaning the parts have gone up and so we have to raise the price, or the labor has gone up and so we have to raise the price, which is fine. But we as guitar players on the end user, we will bitch about $5. We are the cheapest motherfuckers on earth. And that's what I wanted to talk about. So take it away, Jim. What do you think?
I have a simple look at the when it comes to the Wampler pedals, and that's this. Having watched, I've never been a fanboy of a certain style of guitar, type of guitar, pedals, or anything like that. Certainly not pedals. I cannot see with all the. I want to use a really non-PC way of saying this, but I'll use a more PC way than that. And that is, I could not ever see people who sit there on Brian Wampler's page saying to him, oh, I'm not going to pay $10 more. Because those people, those sycophantic people who sit there and praise every time he farts. They're not going to go, oh, we raised your pedals for $10 more. I'm never going to buy them again. I'm out of here. Look, first of all, everybody needs a pay increase. And this guy has people he's got to pay, including himself. And you think he's rich. He's not. He's not getting rich on this. Making a living. That's it. You know, we want to think he's getting rich on it, but he's not.
No, most of these people are just making a living. They're making a wage to pay for their expenses. They might have a little bit going into savings to take care of themselves. But
exactly.
Ultimately, this is not an industry where you're going to see people drive around Ferraris. Now,
right.
there are situations like...
Except for Analog Mike.
Well, yeah, that's because he races
cars.
Well,
no, those are Porsches.
Yeah, he likes Porsches, too.
But he's always been into Porsches.
The guy from Sweetwater, Chuck, the guy that owns Sweetwater,
yeah,
he has a lot of exotic cars. And that's what's strange to me, is in this business, the boutique guys that are building all of the products that get sold by somebody like Sweetwater, who then make the guy rich, aren't making shit. They don't make anything.
Yeah.
But Chuck's got a lot of money, right? Chuck has sweet planes, and he rides a helicopter to work every day. You know, but the people that he buys his product from, they're driving a Pinto. Like that's what's going on here, and it's very strange. So anyway, to back up a little bit, talk about price increases. I can remember the first time I saw a price increase, and I was like, wow, that's jacked up. Going back a long time ago to when the Mexican Standard Strat was $350.
Yep.
Do you remember this time, Jim? It wasn't that long ago. It was in like 2001-ish, 2000.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, Fender was like, nope, they're not $350 anymore. Now and I think it was in 2003, actually. I think it was the year I graduated. They're now $450.
Yeah.
And then they went $500, and now they're at $650. Right? And when I saw them go from $350 to $450, I literally went, well, I guess I'm not buying any more Mexican Standard Strats. And that was me being an idiot because I didn't know much about what had been going on there. So as it turns out, they hadn't had a price increase in like 5 years. And if you can remember the economy back in 2003, like it was all over the place. And now, so fast forward, and we do this last round of Fender changes and price increases. They're now up to $650, right? And I don't look at a $650 guitar and look at it the same way I used to. I'm looking at it going, yeah, it's probably worth it. I mean, but the same quality level is probably the $350 guitar that I saw, years ago. Same thing with G&L, the Tribute Legacy we were just talking about, $500. That's about average. That's what I would expect to pay. They were probably $290 or whatever when no, the Tribute line didn't exist back then. So the Tribute line, I think, happened in 2007 is when that started. But the point is that it's very easy to look at something and say that, but then on down the road, did I have an American Standard Strat? Yeah. So price increases don't really mean a whole lot. We always act like, oh my gosh, I can't believe it's that much money. But at the end of the day, when you need it, you need it. And so you pay the price. And I think we as a community are just loud and obnoxious about it. Oh, I don't like the fact that it costs that much. Wait until you see. So right now, I've had an Ethos Overdrive. We've talked about this pedal before. And I believe they're like $650 with all the modification upgrade options you can get on the pedal. I had one it was loaded. It had everything on it. I waited for them to build it, the whole shenanigans. And look, it was a good pedal, like probably the best overdrive pedal I'd ever heard, but it really didn't do that specific thing that you get an overdrive for, and so I ended up selling it, partially because my Helix basically rendered it obsolete for what I was using it for anyway. And I haven't really looked back. I don't really miss the pedal or anything. But the point is, we all complain, we see a pedal like that, $650 for an overdrive. Wait until the Boss, like, Super Overdrive, Waza, is like $350 when they do a price increase, because it's going to happen at some point. Like it's inevitable. The price of these things goes up. And classic example, you were talking about, we were talking before the show, Strymon. Everybody bitches and complains about Strymon pricing, but ultimately, Strymon sells a lot of fucking pedals, don't they?
That's right.
And so
that's why I said that, you know, I know what Wampler's saying, and honestly, he's
just forced the price increases. Tell him to stop bitching.
He's got to pay it, and people are either going to have to pay it or they're going to have to go somewhere else. And where are you going to go? The other ones have already gone up, or they're going up. You're not going to, that $10 price difference. You and I both have Wamplers. Honestly, I think the amount of money I spent on a dirt pedal was too much. But then again, I like it, Jim, and I depend on it.
Jim, it wasn't too much. That's the thing.
Yeah.
If it's makes you happy, then it's enough. But here's the thing. So too much for a dirt pedal. What do you think a dirt pedal should cost?
Exactly.
Well,
Sorry.
no, I'm asking. What do you think it should cost?
I usually mute when I cough like that.
What?
Yeah, what do I think a dirt pedal costs? See, that's just it. For me, a pedal that goes on and off and doesn't do much else, it's $100. But this thing was $240 or $230?
See, I look at the market now and I think dirt pedal, $170. That's just the way I perceive the market now. And it's partially because of the boutique, and I'm going to call it the boutique taintedness, or the boutique stank that has gotten all over everything. But ultimately, even Boss kind of agrees with me, because they're doing this Waza line of pedals, and if you want a higher quality pedal, you pay more, and they're looking at $175.
Is that how much? I thought the new Waza Metalcraft was, or Metal Zone, or whatever they call it.
I think it's more.
220 something.
Yeah, I think it's more. But
that's my
in
point.
General,
if you're going to buy, if people are going to be priced, if the Wazacraft is going to be priced $200 something point, and Boss does a lot of market research before they go and do something like that.
Yeah,
Boss doesn't just go pull out of their rear end.
The SD1W, and this is the one I'm going to use for reference, is $150. And let's see what the Blues Driver is too. Here we go. It is also $150, which is what I thought. I think they were,
That's the new price?
Yeah, for the Waza. So and I consider those basic drive pedals. A Metal Zone, that's a distortion. That's a whole other thing. And like, that's, obviously that's a metal distortion too, which means it has to have higher quality components for noise suppression and all those kinds of things. So I get that pedal being a little bit more. So ultimately what I'm saying here though is that, that $100 price tag, when I first started playing, that's where overdrives were. Like yes, you could get your cheap old overdrives for like $20 to $30 in some cases, all the way up to $150 for the really high end stuff. But ultimately, most of the pedals in the market were trying to hit that $100 price point. But that was 10 years ago or 15 years ago, and the prices are now. The basic overdrive price point is like $150. So actually, I think these are a value at $150. To be honest with you, I think. Although Philip McKnight, Know Your Gear, he says that the Waza, he doesn't even use the Waza settings on them. So your mileage may vary. I think.
Yeah, he was saying that about. I think it's the SD1.
Yeah, he said that about
he likes,
both. That and the Blues Driver. Actually, he said about both.
And he said he doesn't even care about the Waza settings. Yeah,
so. I think the Waza, there are advantages to having the Waza, because I know the whole circuit is allegedly like trumped up. It's got better components in it, and they take a lot more care in making sure the components are properly matched and all that to the spec sheet. So I can see wanting to have the Waza over the other and not use the mode. So that's my point, is that we all need to start like realizing that stuff costs money, and maybe, no. And then here's the thing. Most of us aren't making any more money, and that's the problem. So even though the gear keeps going up in cost, we're still got the same amount of money to spend on it.
I haven't had a pay increase in 2 years.
unfortunately, I've had several, but they're not amounting to much. And that's, unless you switch jobs, you ain't getting a big pay increase anymore.
Right.
So,
right. And honestly, unless you've got something to hold over them, a lot of times, even then, switching jobs, you wind up in the same place.
Yeah.
Financially.
Yeah.
Because you'll switch jobs and you'll find out, oh wait, you have to pay more,
like longer commute, or
longer commute.
Yeah, you gotta put more gas in your car, kind of deal.
Yeah, or you have to pay a toll that you weren't paying last time.
Right. So yeah, that's where I'm at. I see these kinds of things going on, and I just think this is insane. Now, I'm going to look up something, Jim. I want you to talk on the show for a while. There's a surprise topic for you.
There's a surprise topic.
Oh yeah,
I love surprises.
Right? You're gonna love this surprise. This is what I really want to talk about on the show.
I've always been thinking, wow, wish I had a surprise I could talk about. And then suddenly I don't have any.
Yeah. Okay. So I stumbled across a forum thread on the Gear page. For those of you who have not been on the Gear page before, it is like the greatest hive of scum and villainy that the internet has ever seen. It's Mos Eisley on the internet.
Yeah.
So I'm logging into my account so I can get into one I commented on. And this is pertaining to, and I'm sure you've all heard this stuff before about women guitar players, right?
Yep.
How that the landscape is changing.
Yes.
And the Gear page has taken note. Okay. They believe that the world is changing as well. The problem is, I don't know that some of the people over there are okay with it. And I was both shocked and appalled to see some of the things that were being said by people over there. And I think it warrants a little bit of outing for some of these people to, kind of talk about what a disaster of a human being they are in some regard. Now, granted, everybody's entitled to their opinion. And so I'm obviously asserting my opinion here. This is infotainment. For the show itself, obviously my opinion does not necessarily reflect yours. And so if you don't like it, send me an email, harass me. I don't care. This is where I stand, and I feel like I have to say something. So they referenced the Rolling Stone article in the first part of the thread. And then someone said, the first comment is literally, so half of women or half new guitar buyers are women. And then there's the first post afterwards is half of men are women now too. The times they are a changing.
Oh,
and
Jesus.
As soon as you see that, where this thread is going. Yeah. So I wouldn't. Somebody quoted me, said, I wouldn't go quite that far, but if you are a man who says that they are a woman or wants to be a woman, there will be a bunch of new trucks at your door, or news trucks at your door. If you say you are straight and happy about that, no news trucks. And I'm thinking this is getting way, way bad.
Yep.
What do you, so here's the way. What took them so long? Now that I'm a geezer, I pretty much play with the same circle of dudes and a few women who sing or play keyboards. I would have liked to play with more women guitar, drum, or bass players, but they've been so rare. Women bring a slightly different perspective than men, like Leslie Feist or St. Vincent. They tear it up in a different way. And then somebody else is, who are the other half? In other words, who else is buying guitars? This is the stuff that bothers me. Here's a guy who says they heard about all the action guys who play guitar claim to get, and they decided they went in on some of that. Lots of women in the acoustic sections of stores I visited today. One was really doing a superb job on a banjo. Another was a petite young woman who someone handed a dreadnought to, and she looked at it like it was trying to consume her. Somebody get that lady a Taylor 312, please. And it's stuff like this that just drives me insane. Oh, yep. So she's a woman, so she can't handle a full-size dreadnought. Half of new people are women, so kind of makes sense. Okay, that's kind of smart ass. Good news, it means that we can postpone the death of guitar. Great. First off, half of new players, so half of the people who have bought a guitar bought for them is female. That's not really news. How many stick with it and make it their thing? Not enough. Same is true for boys as well, but they manage to stick with it in greater numbers. And then somebody already said, way to go to Gear Page. When the original post is already somewhat misogynistic, stereotypical, I really ask myself what I'm doing on this forum. And it gets worse. I haven't even finished the first page. It gets absolutely insane. And so I'm looking for my comments because there's some things I quoted. Somebody said I think it was a parody post because it gets bad. There are people literally saying things like, women can't play anyway, so what the hell's the point? Plenty of girls, girls quit playing guitar, or the majority, this is the one I love, the majority of female guitarists I see are songwriters utilizing the guitar, similar to Alyssa Etheridge. I do not see many of them going and doing jazz or shred. And I'm like, Nita Strauss. It's very simple. They're out there. We just don't see them because the industry doesn't push them.
She's one of, I can't say how many. I mean,
yeah, there's a bunch of them now, and there've been a bunch of them for a while.
Yeah.
So of course, somebody says, "Ooh, for the girl with the dreadnought, has anybody seen this one?" And they posted the Ed Sheeran meme. It's Ed Sheeran's guitar signature Telecaster, and only has 3 frets. Which the meme is funny, but not in this context. Ed
Sheeran. We're talking about Ed Sheeran. We're not talking about the women, right? I mean, we're talking about Ed Sheeran.
So I want to read.
He doesn't need more than 3 frets.
I want to read my responses to this thing because there are multiple responses and they're all like right together. So I said, things are changing. We've had enough discussion about it when we started doing our segment on our podcast called Women in Music. Women like Nita Strauss are redefining the gender roles of guitar players, whether people want to accept it or not. For everyone who says things like women are just singer-songwriters, go to your record store. Because you're probably afraid of iTunes, and get some Jennifer Batten or Nita Strauss and tell me there aren't some women out there who genuinely just want to play great guitar. I can remember in the early, aughts when Daisy Rock was around. I always thought it was incredibly sexist to assume that women would want a guitar with different geometry. I have short, stubby fingers and I'm husky. Guitars are not designed ergonomically for me either, and I love them just the same. I'm far from liberal, but I can't just let women continually be disrespected. The worst is when you go to see the local cover band and they always have that over 40 blonde, boobs out, and tambourine in hand. She doesn't do much, but she's always out front for people to see. Isn't she? What a joke. This is 2018. It's time to realize that the next wave of women guitarists, or the next wave of great guitarists probably includes women. And then I commented some very specific posts that said, guitarists are notably some of the most traditionalist people on earth. We still play instruments designed in the 50s with amplification that, honest to God, requires tube technology. It's backwards. In other parts of the world, when they want to get people to adopt the values of the 21st century, it results in wars and beheadings, like in the Middle East. And then somebody else with regard to my impression of was that young girls lose interest at some point, and I said it will happen. And they mentioned that they'd like to see a ladies band. In other words, a band of really good women players, all women players. And I said, it will happen. And you know what? That won't be the thing to watch for. The thing to watch for will be when a band that includes women, is for a band that includes women as equals. Truth be told, of the women I've talked to who are players, the reason they drop out or consider dropping out is because they don't feel any kinship, acceptance, or community. There is a fear that they will never be accepted, and that keeps them in the basements in their bedrooms. Just looking around at some of the smart-ass remarks in this thread makes it pretty clear that they're not wrong. It won't stop it from happening, though. There are women more tenacious than ever in the United States right now. Look around at a newspaper. When I was a kid, we didn't know what a vagina even looked like. Fast forward 30 years, and you have women wearing genitals as a hat. Those are the ladies that will be pushing back, and there are more of them now than ever. So whether you agree with me or not, I mean, we're in a world where everything is changing rapidly, especially with the guitar and musical instruments and music in general. Women have a place here, and we need to stop acting like they don't. I know that there are people out there that still have this impression that it's like, well, all the guitar heroes are male, so that means a woman can't play. That's so fucking ass backwards. And especially when we have people like Sister Rosetta Thorpe, from back in the 30s and 40s and 50s, playing, basically what amounts to the beginning of rock and roll.
I think what people forget is, okay, so the parlor guitar, right? How far back does that date? You don't have to answer that question. Just think about
it. Too far.
A long time ago, okay? We're talking about over 100 years.
Yeah.
And guess who the parlor guitar was designed for? Women.
Mm-hmm.
So believe it or not, there was a time when there were a lot of women who play guitar, not just 50% of the guitar players, a lot of women. And what has happened is it's not just the sexist comments of people in audiences and all, but we come into today. There's these sexist comments right there in that thread. You think a woman wants to step into that thread and say something?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. You guys are acting like this, and they're wondering why there's no community for them. Nobody embraces them.
Absolutely.
Because they see this shit. I mean, I'm just looking at the pictures that people have picked as their avatar in the gear page, and even some of them are sexist.
It's come to the point that there is no room for women, and it's because they're there.
Oh, it's they're lurking.
And they look at these posts and they listen to these podcasts, but they don't want to say anything because two things happen. I can tell you that talking to a lot of women, of course we interview women on this show, but talking to a lot of women in music, you know why they don't say anything? It's because the minute that they post something on Facebook, either they get a heart, they get someone that sends them a wiener pic. I mean, they get hit on. They're in there to do the same thing you are, to talk about gear. They want to talk about gear. They don't care what you look like. They don't want to date you. The first thing I'm singing or playing with a female-led band right now. And the first thing I said to them was, not looking for a date, not looking for a girlfriend. I don't care what she.
Yeah.
In other words, I just want to come in and I just want to play.
The fact that you even have to say that is the embarrassing part of this whole situation.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was. Why should I have to say that? Because if I didn't, they're like, oh, is this person going to come in here and, be like the last 6 guys that came in? Hey, baby.
Hey, you want to have a good time?
Yeah.
Then you probably shouldn't hang out with him.
I know you're married. You got 3 kids.
Yeah. That's the other thing. It's like,
but I'm so awesome.
It doesn't matter to me. It's like, fuck.
Maybe it matters to her.
Maybe she's a lesbian.
Who cares?
Who cares?
The point is, regardless of her sexual preferences or her sexuality or whatever, the thing that you have to remember is she is just another member of the band. A female guitar player. We shouldn't have to put the word female in front. We don't talk each other. Male guitar player. I don't call you a male guitar player.
You know what bothers me worse, other than Michonne rubbing on the microphone right now? Do you know what actually bothers me worse?
That would make me sneeze so bad. I'm going to sneeze just by the way.
So I have seen in the past, of course, people bring up that, the obviously guitar is an instrument that's rooted in ethnic cultures in a lot of ways because of people like Robert Johnson and the Crossroads Story and all these different things, specifically with black culture here in the United States. And blues obviously comes out of that, and jazz is part of that tradition as well. And you see guys, so I've seen before where somebody will say something racist on the gear page, and everybody piles on the dude, and they're like, you're a fucking idiot, because we look at those people for camaraderie, right? We look around us and we say, okay, so I really like Jimi Hendrix. He obviously was African American, and I really like Buddy Guy, for example, or we all have our heroes, and we never really think about the color of their skin until somebody says something shitty, right?
Yep.
And the funny part about the whole situation is, I've seen people get piled on in those kinds of things, but I've never seen somebody, like when somebody says, she's playing guitar on YouTube or whatever, they're like, let me see your boobs. Like, I've never seen anybody pile on that guy. Like, what the fuck?
Right.
You should be just as outraged.
Yep. Well, what happened?
Because apparently sexism is just a joke, and that like racism is a real thing. That's the way it feels to me, and it's disgusting. Like there's no difference between the two. Racism and sexism are essentially the same thing to me.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely, any ism is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not a bigot. I don't think anybody. I've told my wife this before. I don't think anybody is any better or any worse as a person, like a total person package, than anyone else. Because for every deficiency that we have something that makes up for it, right?
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of congruency in psychology and psychiatry and those fields of study that suggest the same thing happens from a mental standpoint. So I've never I didn't have to be raised that way. I just knew it. You kind of grow up, oh, well, that guy's the big, tall, muscular guy. So, that's what he's got. So obviously I have to be the one with the brains because I'm smaller and shorter and don't know how to do anything. And later on you find out you're a lot faster than they are.
Right.
But that's kind of the mentality that I grew up with, was that, well, it just means that I do things differently. And that's fine. And I think for our community, and I'm speaking about musicians in general, like we've gotten past race a long time ago for the most part. Of course, there's still, your holdouts with, their backwards ideas and whatever. But ultimately, like, I don't think I've ever seen a pro, and maybe it goes on behind the scenes, but I don't think I've ever seen a pro guitar player of any other nationality throw somebody else under the bus, when they go on stage. So kudos to the community for that, but we got to figure this women thing out like now. This is getting insane. And to see this kind of 1950s like wife beating thing going on here, it's jaw dropping to me. And honestly, I expected more. I hate the gear page, and I always trash talk it because like it's just a clusterfuck. But to see this is even surprising to me. It really is. So
well, I saw that some other person, not in a group, but personally, put that strand or that thread up on their page, and they referred to it and talked about how that was. And personally, I saw that same thing, and I thought, geez, this is really sad.
Yeah, it's embarrassing. Half of new guitar players are women is the name of the thread if you want to dig it up. I'm not putting this in the show notes. This needs to be buried.
But I think what they forget is it doesn't matter. This is the thing. Everybody, I think what the one person said, because they posted it, I was gonna share that in our group because somebody put it on Facebook. Anyway, maybe somebody shared it in 60 Cycle Hum or something. I think I'm still a member of 60 Cycle Hum. Anyway, the thing that got to me was the immediate, like you said, the sexist threads. There was this. It was YouTube. Anyway, not important. The important part is the immediate sexist response was, "Let's see them shred." And I'm like, nobody said anything about those people being shredders. Not one person, and nobody, and I do mean nobody, asked them to compare them to you. And you shared that thing with me the other day about that shredder. That was not sexual. That was not somebody that went, "Oh, shredders are just people with bad timing and everything else." I was like,
"Oh, that jackass." Let's not talk about that fuckface in this podcast.
I went to that guy's profile, and I clicked on a few of his videos. He was everything he said that he hates about shredding. He had piss poor timing. He had no intonation.
Terrible fucking bending. Terrible intonation. So here's what. Let me explain the situation Jim's describing. I'm a member of a shred group on Facebook, and I joined it mostly so I could ask questions about guitars. But I've been using it to promote the show too. I put the Shred Sucks episode in there at one point, and we got some listens off that. But it was funny because I joined the group. I'm not really active in there. I watch a couple videos every once in a while. Somebody will put something up, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of interesting. But this guy posted in there, and he was like, this is what your average post on this group looks like. And then he basically says, like, it always has poor bending and intonation. It always has, sloppy picking. It's and whoever's posting it needs to practice with a metronome. So Jim, I sent it to Jim because I immediately said somebody needs to push this guy back under the bridge where he belongs.
Yeah,
and he started flipping out, and of course he was a classic troll, and I can't keep my mouth shut when people talk to me like this. So it went back and forth for a bit before I finally blocked it and just said, "To hell with this, I'm done." But like 2 people came to his aid. Most of the people were like, "You're a fucking moron." And the funny part was when I sent it to Jim, I was like, look at this tool. And Jim goes through his page and he's like, "Go watch this." And he's like, sends me a bunch of his videos, and I'm watching them, and they're awful.
Yeah, they were just terrible.
Like, so I'm not a shredder, right? I can do some of that stuff, and I appreciate the art form and the technique and all that, but I've never like focused on, hey, I'm going to make a song where all I do is go fast. Right. If I was going to describe the way I shred, quote unquote, I would say I'm probably more like Steve Vai than I care to realize. Been listening to a lot more of his music lately in the past couple of days, and I'm like, hey, that kind of sounds like that one thing I did. And starting to realize that Vi has rubbed off on me over the years a lot more than I care to realize. But to watch this guy just like get demeaned and to say things like, "Oh, well, you all need to practice with a metronome," and it's like, hey, dumbass, you need to practice with a metronome. And I made a comment about like, "Oh yeah, well, let's see him play with a band." And he's like, "Oh, I have a band." And I'm like, "Well, where are your video clips?" Like, because you don't want to show anybody what kind of music you actually have to play, because that's the thing with shred players. Unless you're playing in your bedroom with tracks, it's really hard to find musicians of the caliber that can keep up with you. And I have problems finding musicians that I feel comfortable with, like just like extending and going out and stepping out on the ledge, because you want to do safe when you're performing, because you don't want to screw up, and you need some people that are willing to take an adventure with you in order to make that happen, and that's difficult to come by. So
it is.
That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying that they have to be a specific caliber. Look, if you can play double kick, drums, you could probably play for Yngwie, because that's what 90% of his drumming ends up being. But again, it's about finding the right people who are willing to take risks, the same risks that you are. So, yeah, I just wish people would stop trolling the fucking internet so hard. And I don't get the appeal of getting a rise out of people. I tried to be a troll. I did. I spent a year trying to get kicked out of all these groups, and I realized in that process, because I didn't want to. So first off, I was not going to pick fights with people. I was the subtle troll. Like, I was going to go in and I was just going to make bad posts that people would eventually just say, "You know what, this guy's not really doing anything constructive. Get him out of here." Because I'm not a guy that likes to hurt people. That's not my thing, and it never will be. But I went into a couple of groups that did that kind of stuff, and I could never get kicked out. So I don't understand the pleasure or the dedication to become like a real troll.
Right. What it really takes to troll people. I can show you.
Oh yeah. Oh, I went into the P-Dubs group, the Gear Talk P-Dubs group, and when they were doing that roast my board thing. You remember that whole craze?
Yep.
I did roast my Bible, and nobody kicked me out.
Roast my Bible.
Nobody said a word.
That's a good one, though.
Do you know what ruffled feathers? When I suggested that, I asked if any churches were going to do tributes to George Michael. That made some people really ticked off.
See, you know how to troll.
I'm pretty good at it. I am good at it, but I just I get no pleasure from it.
Oh, I don't get any pleasure. The only time I get any pleasure from trolling is when a troll says something and then you say something back, and then they take offense to it.
Oh, I love poking the bear a little bit.
Then there's fun to that. There's a lot of fun to be had.
So you saw that thread the other day. I poked the bear quite a bit. Like, I knew I was getting trolled, and I didn't care, because I was gonna make him look like an idiot. I told Jim, I had to explain to Jim like what my strategy is when you deal with trolls. Like, a lot of people say, just shut up and leave them alone so they'll go away. That never works, first off, because then they just find a new thread to go fuck with people. So
Yep.
what I like to do is to make them look like a complete idiot so that anybody who's reading the thread knows that they're an idiot and then pays no attention to them anymore. So,
I like to think that they're like moths before the light bulb was invented. Eventually, they got to find a place to go.
so what you're telling me is I need to be the guy that builds the electric keyboard that will shock the shit out of them when they troll.
Yeah.
I think that's a good idea. Somebody's got to build the flame, for the moth.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we look in this world, there's a lot of trolls, and there's a lot of reasons that people troll. We live in a world now where, like we've said 100 times in this cast, the best thing you can do is go out and hang out with people. These are people that just don't leave the home. Think about it. We live in an era, it wasn't that long ago, when you had to pick up the phone at least to call and order a pizza. Okay? You had to talk to somebody. We live in an era now where there are people that do work and never leave the home. They don't have to leave the home to do anything. And in that sense, think about it. They can have their car why they have a car, I don't know, but they can have their car cared for by the company that comes and just takes their car.
You can seriously stay at home completely now without leaving the house. You can order your groceries and everything.
That's right. You can order your groceries. You can your refrigerator will, and that's the scary part. The refrigerator will order the groceries for you.
Yes, and you can get those refrigerators now. I was thinking about it. You know how much easier that would make my life. Like, milk is bad. New milk on the way.
I looked at one a couple weeks ago. No, I'm not spending that much money for it, but I thought it was cool.
What do they cost?
I can watch YouTube on it.
What do they cost? What do they cost? Like
it was over $3,000.
$2,000, $3,000. Okay.
Yeah, it was over $3,000. I mean, this thing was top.
I'm not buying it for my condo because I don't plan on living here forever. So,
but the point is that after you get done with all that crap, right? You've got the refrigerator that can order for you. You can work from home. You can play from home. You can go to church from home. You can be in a band from home.
Yeah.
You can YouTube from home. Eventually, you're going to have no ability to, and especially if you're a kid coming up in this, you're not going to have any personal skills.
Right. Right.
And when you walk into a room, you think you're supposed to be the center of attention because that's what you've been in your Facebook profile, your YouTube channel, on every other thing. So when you do get thrust into a position where you have to talk to people, you either don't or won't.
There are a ton of people out there now. And I was having this conversation with Pat at Good Time. We're going to get Pat on the show, by the way, everybody. Pat has agreed to come on. We got some other guests to get out of the way first. But when Pat comes on, look out because it's going to be fun. We were talking about the YouTube personalities and people like Chappers that have, their signature guitar company, whatever. Chapman Guitars. He had a lot to say about Chapman Guitars. I'm going to let him say it when he comes on the podcast. But he basically said what I've said all along is, why the fuck should Rob Chapman have his own guitar line? Why? It doesn't make any sense. He's not an Eddie Van Halen, right? He's not a pioneer of the electric guitar.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
And you kind of alluded to it. Pat should probably know this. These people get courted by Court. Court comes in and says, hey,
he's actually not using Court. They're using another company, but yeah, it's basically the same thing. Like,
yeah.
You got an empty factory with no business, and they come to you and they say, hey, we got this open space. Like, we'll build you guitars.
That's right.
In his case, Anderton's is actually Chapman is Anderton's. Okay. Yeah,
Chapman is being backed by Anderton's. Anderton's has got his money in there, and so 50%, at least 50% of that is Lee Anderton.
Well, the funny part about the whole situation is that he was talking about. Now, maybe we'll talk about this briefly. We're only in an hour and 15. He was talking about the fact that what we had talked about early on with Chapman, which was that there was there's no dealers because the investment buy-in to carry Chapman is stupid.
It's huge.
It is insane
for such a line that has no real history yet.
It's not even that it has no real history. They don't have there's not enough desire from people to own one of those for the amount of commitment that you have to put in. Now, here's the funny thing. So they started opening the dealership here in the United States. The deal was you would have to buy like it was $20,000 or $30,000 for the merchandise, right? Pre-order, and you have to pay up front, which no other company does. It's usually a deposit.
That's what RNA was talking about.
And you have to pay before the guitars are imported, which other companies don't do that either. Like the distributor brings them in and then you buy them from the distributor. So in this particular instance, and we'll have Pat talk about this more because he can talk more about the distributor relationship and those kind of things. But to pay to have these guitars imported, and then they said they were going to be here in like March or whatever, May. I think it was May. Jim, they just showed up last week. So if you put out a $20,000 outlay to carry models from them, you waited 6 months on product.
Exactly.
6 months, and you had nothing. Nothing during that 6 months. That is insane. And it doesn't make any sense because they're not that desirable. Correct me if I'm wrong. If there's people in the group that are looking for a Chapman, let me know. But when you stop and you think about that level of commitment to a brand, not Schecter, not Ibanez, not Fender, not Gibson, has that kind of a situation going where you have to pay up front for product that may not appear on the scheduled date. And that's a real problem. Now, we were talking at the beginning of the show, we were talking about GNL. I watched a YouTube video from a guy in Britain who had a problem with a distributor, right? And so he went without any new guitars for like 6 months. Now, here's the funny part about the video. So I was in a really dark place. I've been carrying GNL tributes. Well, and this is where it kind of lost me. You said, I've been carrying GNL tributes for 20 years. No, you haven't. They haven't existed for 20 years. So how the hell could you have carried tributes for 20 years? He'd carried GNL for 20 years, which is fine. Okay, I get you. I got you. They had a British distributor, and they lost their distributorship. GNL sent out a nice message to all their dealers in Britain and said, "We will be working with another distributor as soon as possible. We'll keep you posted." Right. So 4 months went by, and this guy's got all these orders mounting up, and he can't deliver. Right. So he calls up like everybody at GNL that he can get on the phone, and he finally gets to talk to the president, who says basically, yeah, we know you need a distributor. We're working on it. Like, you'll be the first to know when it happens. So in the meantime, he contacts Germany, the German distributor, and he says, "Look, we'd love to get some guitars." And the German people are like, "Oh yeah, we'd love to help you. We know that there's a problem with distributor here in Britain and stuff. Like, we'd love to help you with that." Of course, then they said, "But we have to check with GNL first." And GNL said no. So this guy went without product for like 8 months. So you know what ended up happening? He gets a call from, I think it's Cortec or somebody like that. And they said, I guess it's CITES related, that CITES 3D related, because they were having difficulty exporting into Britain, and there was a whole bunch of customs paperwork that had to happen. And so that's part of the reason why they weren't able to get a distributor, because nobody wanted to deal with that yet. So he got the Tokai line from Japan. And then, of course, the video ended up being an advertisement for Tokai. And he's like, "Oh, yeah, these are just as good, and like they're better than the Squire stuff." And I'm sitting there going, "Come on, dude. Come on." No dealer would rather have Tokai over GNL. And he was acting like, "Well, God closed the window, but he opened the door in the other room." It's like, come on, man. Come on. Tokai is not a brand that's going to move. Maybe in England they do. Maybe they move more in England than GNL. I don't know. Or they have more clout over there. But I'll tell you this, here in the States, modern Tokai, like new production Tokai, I would laugh at that. And most of the other guitarists I know would too. So just goes to show you, like, that can happen with anybody
It's not like it's
problems.
that 70s Tokai that like people like, or those early 80s when
they have
they
nothing
were
to
making
do with
really
that.
cool knockoffs.
Now it's just a name, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
So, well,
right.
we're at an hour and 20. I think it's time to wrap it up.
Yeah.
I know some people have been complaining because we're going to go to one episode shortly, and probably 20 episodes or something. We're going to go to one episode a week.
Yep.
Everybody's complaining about it. Well, just Jason Fuzzmeyer, really. You kiss my ass. I spend way too much time podcasting and not enough time playing the guitar.
Well, I figured it was going to be this week that we were going to go to one episode. So
no,
that's quicker than I thought.
We got some time. We got another 10 episodes or something before we hit 100.
Oh,
so
okay.
I think this is episode 84, 85.
We're almost there.
Yeah, soon, probably end of November.
So Wednesday, folks, we'll be having an open.
Yep, as I said
discussion.
at the beginning of the episode, we'll have an open discussion. I'll post the information in the show's group. You can find it on facebook.com/group/practicalguitarist.
Yep. And those who are part of the discussion will know about it and be able to talk about it for 24 hours beforehand because it doesn't get posted till Thursday.
Yeah, so it's going to be fun. I'm looking forward to meeting some people. We'll talk about plans for the future, I guess, on part of the episode, and we'll probably have some topics and some things that we can all kind of share. We might even do a round table topic where introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about you.
And what would you like to have for a topic?
Actually, what I'm thinking, Jim, this is the question we should ask everybody. We should ask everybody in the group, what has been your favorite moment on the show so far?
Yeah. I know what my favorite moment has been.
Which one?
But I was drunk at the time.
Oh my God!
So nobody's heard it.
The one where Jim talked about the DNA replication of trees.
Yes, and tree DNA replication, which devolved into why there are certain industries that have pushed other industries, and I won't go into what industries because again, I was drunk at the time. But maybe we'll talk about it on the. If people push me hard enough, maybe on the open discussion.
We got a few minutes. We got like 10 minutes. Let's talk. Let's take a look back at the show and just talk about how things have been, because this is kind of an anniversary episode for you and I.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's been a blast. Like there have been a lot of things that have happened as a result of this show that I never thought would happen. My greatest moment was probably the night that I went to the club that's right here by my house to see Michelangelo Badio, and that whole craziness that transpired that evening. Like, I did not foresee that going the way it did, and literally Jim's just like, "Oh, you should try to get an interview." So I'm like, "All right, fine. I'll go contact some people." And I didn't expect to get any replies. I figured I'd just ask, And then lo and behold, I get replies from like Badio himself and like, "Oh yeah, I'd love to." And then the whole shenanigans with his man. Go talk to my manager. He'll know who you are. Yeah, he didn't tell his manager shit. And so he knew the club was really small and he knew there wasn't going to be anybody there. So he was just drinking at the bar and I walked up to him. It was the whole thing. It was that moment has probably been the defining moment of the show for me, because that was like the moment where I realized like, I'm like a journalist now. This is weird. Well, now, I don't know what to do with this.
And now you can walk up to Badio, and have a beer with the guy.
Yeah, no.
And it's not like it's weird. I think that one of the biggest things for me was when I went to the PRS event and they said, "Oh, you're first it was
Gearfest was going to be the next one, and I was going to get there."
Yeah. Gearfest is it's not uncommon to be one of the people who have a press badge. But when I went to the PRS thing, they were like, "You have a press? You're a press?" Yeah, and I gave them my business card.
Yeah, they treat you differently there,
and they totally treated me differently. It was really cool and really interesting and really fun. I
don't really want to be treated differently though. When I went to Gearfest, I wanted to be a fly on the wall. I wanted to report like what it would be like to just be a normal dude going there.
No, I liked it. So I liked having. I've been the fly on the wall. Yeah. I've been the guy that just showed up and nobody gives a rat's ass that you're around. But when you're wearing that thing and you get to stand. Oh, this is the press box. When the show starts, you can stand right here.
Yeah.
Where you're right up front in everybody else's way.
It's
even though
cool.
I'm only 5'6".
Yeah. So to compare and contrast, like you went there and you got to meet all these like YouTube personalities and stuff. Staying in a house with Ryan Burke from 60 Cycle Hum was probably the single weirdest experience I've had as a podcaster, just because like I get up in the morning and there was Ryan. And I was like, wow, this is odd. I've spent like 3 years of my life listening to your podcast and watching you on YouTube. And now here you are right in front of me, and you're not any different as a person or anything. And, they say you should never meet your heroes. This is the first time I'm going to admit that Ryan is a bit of a hero of mine, because he did something, and that show did something that really nobody else had been able to do at that point, which was to take basically two guitar hobbyists and to draft a show around it that was both entertaining, more entertaining than insightful. And that's where, I've tried to inject as much entertainment in the show as possible, while still maintaining an air of information. And I feel like just getting to meet him and realizing that we were both kind of taking similar approaches to how we want to use this event to like go around and talk to people that, we can network with, and just realizing like, actually it was the moment that I realized like, wow, I'm like a real podcaster and like kind of like a journalist, and that was that
feeling I had when I went to PRS. It was you are a journalist.
Until that point, we felt like we were amateurs. Like up to that point, and then we realized like they're all amateurs. Like what the hell?
And when I talked to these guys, it was like they are just like me. And they're not any better than you are. They're not any better than I am. And you don't have to be a super shredder. And you can ask, as long as you ask intelligent questions and you're not an asshole. People welcome you into that circle. I've been part of the circle of musicians for so many years. I mean, I started as a teenager one day. I went to a show. I saw people picking gear up and carrying it onto a stage, and I went, I'm going to join that crowd. And I just did that. And the next thing I knew, I was backstage at a Foreigner concert. So things are different for different people. I mean, and I've always been like that. I've always been the person. 'Cause I guess once you get back there, you realize that, first of all, there is no such thing as being starstruck once you've already met these people. They put their pants on the same way you do. They're
just people. They're just people. Like,
and the ones that people are like, oh, that guy was an asshole when I met him. He was an asshole. I walked up and I asked for an autograph. And then you're like, you ask, okay, so where were you when you asked for the autograph? Oh, he was taking a piss. Yeah, well, maybe you could have waited for him to finish with his wiener.
Could you take your hand off your dick and sign my paper?
I mean, come on. I mean,
can I get a selfie of your dick?
If you had that all the time, people love to say things like, yeah, well, if I was famous, I would be like, yeah, you don't even like it when somebody bothers you at lunch and all you are is a friggin' regular employee at a normal job, and people only bug you like once a month. People get bugged all the time. They don't want that. They just want you to be who you are, and then when they've got time to talk to you, that's the thing with Michelangelo Badio. That's why I told you. I said, just hang out, just hang loose. He'll get back to you, and he did.
Yeah. So the going to GearFest, and now actually Michelangelo Badio was like probably the biggest guitar celebrity that I'd ever talked to and like worked with, and hanging out with him for a little bit, and then going to GearFest, and then just being sitting there at a table, and Ryan's like, "Hey, Nita," and she comes walking over, and I'm like, "Wait a minute, that's Nita Strauss." Like, what the fuck? And then even later on, going the guy from Spectre SMG, what's his name? It escapes me right now. Oh yeah, running into him, and then sitting and having lunch with those guys, and not like just being a dude there. Like nobody said nothing. Nobody cared.
And Greg Koch.
Yeah, and others.
Yep. And you suddenly realize that they're just people too, and they're there actually just doing like you're doing.
And a lot of times, even at like GearFest or something like that, they're wanting to meet the fans. Like they want to see the people that are actually buying their music, and like
exactly
they're very interested in it. And it's not they don't insult people like this. They're always super nice.
Well, and they go there knowing that every minute of their waking hour that they're in that public eye.
Yeah, they're
people are going to walk up to them, and they have that attitude.
Yeah.
And that's why it's different. And people will be like, yeah, but I met so and so at this Gear Fest and it was so awesome. And yet I met this person in the toilet and they weren't that nice.
So if you're not going to be able to make our Wednesday webcast, go ahead and post your favorite moment in the group. I'd love to know what people liked about the show in the last year that we've done it. Jim and I have no foreseeable plans to end the show anytime soon. So this is going to go on for a really long time, I feel. And I just want to, make sure that like we're all on the same page, but also just to kind of take a look back and give us a retrospective. Cause I know there's things that I'm forgetting that we did. We
want to start talking about things that y'all enjoy. I mean, do you enjoy more the gear stuff? Do you enjoy more the babble and the banter? Do you enjoy more the talk about playing and technique and the shredding things and the stuff we talk about there? Do you want to see more demonstrations? Do you want to hear more demonstrations? That type of thing.
Do you want me to yell in every episode so that the microphone clips?
I just have to be warned so I can pull my earbuds out.
Yeah. Do you want me to, if that's the stuff you guys like, if you want to see me get angry, you can always join the Patreon. I'm going to have rants in the Patreon.
We're going to start putting the Patreon stuff together. So that's one of the reasons for going to one a week, so we can start
focusing on other content and promoting the show more.
Right.
We are still committed to giving you the best show we can. If anything, there will probably be more prep work that goes into each show. And
you got to remember, both of us have day jobs. I'm in a band, so I rehearse twice a week.
I got day jobs. I got kids.
She's got little kids. I've got a moronic dog that walks around.
I got 2 cats. I got kids. I got a wife. Yep. I got day job. I have a night job too that I do occasionally, which is web design. And then I try to play guitar sometimes. I mean, it has to happen in there somewhere.
Believe it or not, I haven't been able to play guitar all day, which is weird.
Well, I have that problem all the time. I suck at guitar, so I barely ever can actually play it.
Yep. Well, and before we close, I'm going to say this. So the whole reason that I haven't put up a lot of videos has been because I'm going to admit something to everybody. I'm very sensitive about when people start to slam on me. And back, I put up an instructional video. I put up a 1-4-5 thing or 1-5-3, something that some bass player asked me how to do, and I just put it up on my YouTube page to share it. To say, okay, this is because that was the easiest way to share a video. Right. It still is. And because I didn't know anything about making it private and everything like that, people saw it and they were like, "Oh, I would have expected you to be better than that." And and then I saw that guy's playing. I was like, here we go.
Oh, believe me. And you're always your own worst critic. And even when I've done my stuff, like I look at my videos and go, oh God, like, what am I thinking? Because this is not how I normally play. And like, I feel like I get out of my element because I want to show a specific aspect of something that it's not how I would normally do it. I just want to show that I can do it, All right, guys, it's an hour and 32 minutes. I've been David.
I've been Jim.
And we have been the Practical Guitarists for the last year.
Yeah.
See you on Wednesday.